Welcome to another episode of Fit Joe's. Thank you for joining me again. So today we're going to look at some more around relationships. And I was reading this week that apparently the 5 C's of dating when we're looking for potential partners is very important. Now, I know in my previous history of dating that I've been called a lot of the C words and that hasn't really helped me out. So what I was going to do is just look at this today, have a little chat about this. I did put it out on my Instagram as well, 50 Shades of Grey, and also Davidson.Elliott on Instagram. And we'll be going through some of the things the responses that I had later on in the show. So basically, this is a framework that outlines key elements for building and maintaining a healthy relationship. Now, one of the questions that I think this does bring up that I'm always aware of myself is that I feel that I've had lots of experience in relationships, albeit quite short relationships. But at what stage does a relationship become a long relationship? Is that an individual thing? Because there'll be people that watch the show and say, well, what do you know? You haven't had a relationship past 5 years, and that's hardly any time at all. Now, to me, a 5-year relationship does seem a long relationship, a 2-year relationship, but it's all relevant. I think if you've been with someone 30, 40 years, then your idea of a long relationship is not going to be 2 or 5 years. Now, I think if we look back upon relationships in general and how they've changed so much over the years, I think that people would say 2 years is not a long time because you want to have kids and you want to get married. But maybe now I'm not so sure that everyone is looking for that. I think relationships in the past have been based around when a woman is able to have kids at a good age. And I think that's a really important question as well. I think if you was given as a woman and where you did not have a biological clock, what age would you say that it was great to have kids? Would you still say early 20s, like late 20s, or would you now say actually probably early 30s? Or would some of you actually think, no, early 40s would be great for me? Maybe some of you say late 40s because you want to get a lot of your life out of the way first. But then there is the point of, do you want to be a young parent or do you want to be an older parent, but maybe with a young outlook? And that is obviously all personal. Now, relationships, I think, for women are centered around our biological clocks. If I'm going to have kids, I need to be with someone 2 or 3 years to give us every chance of maybe staying together. Or, women, you tell me, is that not something that you think about now? Do you think this is a good guy to have kids with? That's what I want. The relationship is different. Or is it still seen as for many years as, you get married, you stay with someone? Because that clearly isn't the case anymore. Look at divorce rates now. They're through the roof. Unless people are seeing marriage as an ideal scenario that they actually want. I think a lot more people are going for, well, let's stay together. We don't need to get married. I'm an independent woman. You're an independent guy. We both earn our money. We don't need to be together because I'm not staying home because I want to work. And I think a lot of this has changed because of the woman's role in relationships as well. We become more independent, more in line with jobs, same salaries as guys can, and they can be, I'm self-sustainable. I don't need a man to look after me. I need a man maybe to have children, but that may be a question for the future. Do women see relationships in the future as something, we're going to have kids and we're going to do that together, or we're going to have kids and then we're going to see how the relationship goes? Because there's no guarantee with anything is going to last, obviously. And I think gone are the days where people are scared to leave. I think that still happens a lot, but I think gone are the days where people are scared to leave because they've got no way of supporting themselves, no independence and nothing else. They're in control of their own destinies and they're going to be with someone that they want to be with. They're not going to stay with people because they don't want to. I think women now are not staying in relationships where they're not happy, which I think was very much the case of if you go back 20, 30 years ago. People stayed for what I personally think were the wrong reasons, and they made the marriages work rather than maybe making each other happy because they were worried about the kids and worried what effect that may have on the kids. So we're going to look at these 5 C's, because I digress as per normal. We're going to look at these 5 C's in a relationship, and we're going to go through each one. So he does say, while individual preferences vary, these principles can help individuals assess potential partners and cultivate stronger bonds. So apparently these are the things that you should be looking at if you're dating. So this is single people that are looking to date and going into relationships. So here we go. So the first C, which I think is the most important C initially when you meet people, is chemistry. So this refers to the initial attraction and the spark between two people. It encompasses both physical and emotional connection, including how comfortable and excited they feel in each other's presence. Now, I think that's a really big one, chemistry. I think when you see someone, you've got to fancy them. You want to look at that person, for me, and you want to feel like you want to rip their clothes off and throw them around the kitchen in a good way, obviously. So I think that's really important. I do find with chemistry, and I think that's the same for all of us, that after that physical attraction, in order to be sustained, there needs to be emotional and moral attraction as well. Because I'm sure we've all done it where we meet people that we absolutely fancy the pants off, and we think they're the hottest thing ever, and it's all very superficial and it's all very passionate. But after 2 or 3 weeks, there's certain things about them that don't align with your morals, and then you don't look at them the same way in this second part of that sort of 4 weeks, because you now know them more as a person. So I do think for it to be sustained, you do need to have that emotional connection, but still retain the physical connection. Because if that physical connection fizzles out, then it does become harder work. And yeah, I do get that people say, yeah, but you get to know people on a deeper level and on a different level. Yeah, I guess you do, but unless you're physically attracted to them, does that mean the sexual part of your relationship is just dead and buried? And if you meet someone that's not a sexual person and they're happy not to have a sexual relationship, then tickety-boo, it works for everyone. From my experience and from talking to a lot of people, and this is my friends and talking to women that I've met over the years, I think the sexual attraction still needs to be there. It does still need to be there. So that's the first one. The second one, the second C, is commonality. So this involves shared interest, values, and life goals. Having things in common can provide a foundation for deeper connection and understanding. Yeah, I'm on board with that one as well. Completely on board with that one. I think it's very important to have things in common. I really do. I think to have the same interests. I don't think you need to have all of the same interests. I think there needs to be, or it helps if there's certain things that you like you've got your own things. You still need your own identity. I think it's great if you have parts of your circles that overlap and there's stuff that you can do together. But I do think also it's nice to have your own things away from each other, because you need to miss each other as well. I think that's a really important part of it. When you're in relationships, I think at first that eagerness to see each other is really important, and it's really nice as well because you look forward to it. And if you forget what that feels like, I think you can lose sight of each other sometimes, and you can then take each other for granted. I think values is a very big thing, and that runs across everything. It's how you see society, it's how you see aspects of politics maybe. For me, it's simple things. It's common courtesies. It's about how you treat other people. It's about kindness. It's about how you speak to a waiter in a restaurant. It's about how you may complain but do it in a nice way. And it's how you may not moan at every single thing. So for me, I think those values are really important. Life goals, I think we've all got our own life goals. I think you need to be heading in the same direction. I think if you're too separate, if one is completely driven by money and the other one is like, yeah, I get money's important, but it's not everything to me, because if you're working all the time, when are we going to enjoy it? When are we going to have this money to enjoy? We've got all this money. We've got no time to do it because I'm doing it on my own, because you're nowhere to be seen because you're working all the time. So I think there's a balance there with that as well. For a deeper connection, understanding, I think it does provide a foundation for that. And I think there becomes, you grow closer. I don't know about a deeper connection. I think sometimes you're connected to people in ways that you'll never know about. You just match up. There's something in you that is attracted in something in them. And I think it's quite nice that you don't always work out what it is. There's that whole thing about attraction. So constructive conflict. I like this one. This is very good. So conflict is inevitable in any relationship. This C emphasizes the importance of handling disagreements in a healthy and productive way, rather than resorting to negativity or avoidance. Now, I've always thought that conflict can be a really good thing. I don't think you want to be surrounded, and this is sort of takes place at work as well, I think, for me. I'd never want to be in charge of something and be surrounded by a load of people that just always said yes. Yeah, that's a great idea, do that, when actually they thought, don't do that. That's the stupidest idea I've ever heard. I think the hardest thing with conflict is taking it in. Because your first reaction is to sort of, you've had a go at me, I'm having to go back at you. So I think within the constructive conflict, I think there needs to be time. I think you are going to conflict over certain things. And what you don't want is one person, the same person, always giving in, is always going, okay. Or there's a whole let's agree to disagree thing. I think that works with some things. If you're doing it about everything, that means you basically disagree with everything across the board. So then the previous one, commonality, just goes out the window. I think constructive conflict, I've always found in relationships that and it's probably at the most dangerous time for me as well, that I think once you feel confident that you can have an argument with someone and it's not going to affect the relationship, I think that's a really great place to get to. But I also think it's a dangerous place to get to as well. And that's just for me personally, because I've the one time I've had it before, like you feel, because at that point, that's when you become vulnerable, because you feel safe enough in your relationship to actually have an argument and it's not going to affect anything. When actually, I don't think you ever know, because you never completely know what the other person is thinking at any time or what's going on with them in their head, because they might not get it either. So I do think that it's a great place to get to, is being able to have an argument, because I think in the early days, and this is what we're talking about, I think in the early days of this, I think sometimes you're scared to argue with people because you don't want to upset them. And you think, I don't want to upset the apple cart here. God, if we have an argument, then maybe she's going to be thinking, he's a bit of a numpty and like, he's this and he's that, it's all over. And that happens a lot. And, I think people react a lot because it takes a while to get to that point of where you know each other well enough to go, right, well, I can say this. I think how you argue is really important as well, because like the constructive conflict is okay and is important as long as you both argue in the same way. I know people in arguments that will say the worst, nastiest things about you because their head's gone and they just want to get at you. They just want to say the worst things to hurt you. The next day, they'll forget all about them. And they think, well, it was an argument. You say things in the heat of the moment. Yeah, I'm not built that way, me. I remember everything. And I'm very careful about what I say. In my head, when I'm arguing with someone, I could think of 10 things like that I could really get at someone with and really hurt them. I'm not that way. I don't ever want to hurt someone that bad that I'm going to say the worst things about them that they don't want to hear either. Now, I'm sure some of you go, well, you should be able to speak to each other and tell each other the truth. Sometimes there's truths about yourself that you know, and you don't want other people telling you that because you think you've hidden them well enough within you that no one else sees them. So them telling you that they know about them just sort of unveils it all, and you just become way too vulnerable. So I think how you argue is important, because I know friends of mine that they argue and they scream, shout and fight each other. And they're fine with it because they argue the same way. Whereas for me, it's way too much drama in my life. I just think I can't be dealing with that. I'd be out straight away. Hence probably why I've only had ever 1-2 year relationships. But that's just me. And I think it takes time to find someone who's on the same levels as you, let's say. So constructive conflict, yes, I think it's really important. But I do think you need to argue in the same way. If you're quite an aggressive arguer, then you'll maybe need someone that's an aggressive arguer too, not someone that's a little laid back and more passive and just goes, okay, because that's dangerous for you, because they're laid back and passive to a point. And then once they get that point with some people, there's no return from it and they're gone. Okay, courtesy. Oh, I like courtesy. This involves treating each other with respect, kindness, and consideration. It means being mindful of each other's feelings and need. I think courtesy is just a basic fundamental of human nature that courtesy has gone out a lot. Just saying hello to people, holding the door open for people, basic things that I think where you can help other people. I think it's just common courtesy. And I think that's gone. And I think it can go probably the quickest in a relationship, because when you first meet people, you're holding doors open for them, and then you're opening the car door, you're doing this, and they're all very maybe gentlemanly things. But I just think it's a point of courtesy. I think for me, I'll always, if I'm going through a door, I'll always say to someone, after you. And I'll always hold a door open for people. The flip side of that, what really gets my goat is when people just don't even bother saying thank you, because you think, I should have just shoved it in your face. So that annoys me. But that, again, that's just common courtesy. If someone holds a door open, say thank you. Really appreciate that. But that's gone. I don't know where it's gone. I don't think younger people today have those courtesies so much. I think schools are busy places now, and I think some schools are very good at it, and I think other schools probably don't have time to enforce it all of the time, and it gets lost. But I think courtesy with each other is really important, just not to forget it. There are going to be times that you do, but as long as you, I should have held the door open for you, or I should have opened the car door for you, I should have helped you if you're carrying something heavy, or I should have done something. So I do think that's important as well. Last one, commitment. Oh God. This is the willingness to invest in the relationship, work through challenges, and build a future together. It signifies a conscious decision to prioritise a relationship and make it a priority. Okay, I do agree with that, but what I would say as a caveat to that, it depends when you meet in your relationship as well. Because if you're meeting people when you've got kids, your commitment is going to be completely different, and your priorities are different as well. So I think if you're meeting when you're both single, neither one of you have got kids, then your commitment to each other needs to be there. It needs to be unwavering, but there needs to be a respect of previous commitments. And I'll give you a really easy example of that for me. Football for me was a constant in my life. It's something I've always enjoyed, and it's something that has always been there for me. If I'd have had a crap week or a relationship breaks down, football on a Saturday was a saviour. Going to a place with a load of other guys where I could just forget myself for an hour and a half. It gave me a consistency in my life every week. It gave me something to focus on. It gave me something to train to be better for. It was emotionally, it could be draining sometimes, but it never lied to you. If you were crap, you were going to play crap. And that was that. If you were good, you felt great. There was no sort of blurred lines with it. You weren't guessing what anyone else was thinking or what anyone else was doing. It was quite simple. If you was having a bad game, there'd be 10 other guys that were going to tell you was having a bad game. If you were doing well, there'd probably be 2 other guys that would tell you doing well. And football for me was that consistency. If I met someone, I needed them, which a few didn't, to understand that. I needed a few people to understand, right, I'm not stopping this for you. This has been a consistent in my life. This will always be here. If you leave, I'll have football. If this works out, I'll have football. But I need you to understand this. So I think commitment, it's heavily involved on the other person understanding your previous commitments that you have and respecting those again. And I think that it combines with courtesy, that you respect other people's previous commitments and things that are important to them. Kids is a massive one, because I've had 2 or 3 relationships that have ended because the other person wanted me to give them more time, and they were right for them. And this is the thing, no one was wrong here. There were no wrong answers sometimes. They were like, I need you to give me every other weekend. Just give me some time. And that's a fair thing to ask. That person needs investment. But for me, it was like, no, this is my priority. I need you to understand my priority and respect that and actually like me for it, because I'm sure there's lots of parents out there that don't give their kids enough times, and there'll be partners again. God, I wish the mum, the dad, whoever it may be, they gave their kid more time than going out and doing whatever they want to do. So for me, that was always a difficult thing, and I needed a partner to respect that, and I would also, in turn, respect that in a partner. And I think that's the key to a lot of these and it probably comes from commonality and your values and what you've got in common. I can understand where all of these are. I think there's blurred lines on a few of these. And like I said, I put this out to Instagram, my accounts on Instagram and on TikTok. So we're going to go through a few of those and see the replies on those. So we're going to go through a few of these responses that we had on Instagram, just picked out a few. Jill Hammond 962 just said, no, what are they? Laugh out loud. Catherine said, I have, and why is it so hard to find? I just think it is hard to find. I think it's hard to find for the people that won't settle because you're not just taking what's there. You're looking for something special. And for those that have been lucky enough to find it, brilliant. But for those that just aren't, we're probably the ones that are always told that we're too fussy and you want everything. And to that, I always say, it's the rest of my life. Of course I want everything. Vanessa says commitment and connection. Well, Vanessa, you can find out if you're right now. That's it for 7. Communication, compromise, commitment, choice, and celebration. That's an interesting one. Celebration. I guess that's celebrating each other. Yeah, I can see where that comes in. Debbie, I'm guessing one of those would be compromise. Compromise actually wasn't on there. It came up a couple of times on the messages that people were saying it's about compromise. I'm wondering, are people less likely to compromise now? And should we compromise? I think there has to be a little bit of give and take in a relationship. And that's maybe where the compromise comes in. As long as you're both doing it, I think if it's always, like I said before, if it's always one of you doing the compromise, that's great for the other person. But sooner or later, and I know I'm like this, I just get to the stage where I'm like, I'm done, there you are, and I'm gone. And once I get to that stage, I'm not changing my mind about it, and it will come very quick. What I have learned to do, actually, is tell people that if this continues, then I know what I'll do because I know what I'm like. So, and I've done that a couple of times where I've said, look, this is all fine, you can do this, and if that's your choice, you need to do it. But once I've had enough of it, I'll be done. That will just be it then. So, yeah. So just a couple more. So Susie says, can't wait. Susie, it's going to be out by the time you see this, obviously, so you don't have to wait. Foshbird, that's a good name. She says it's interesting. Hopefully you found this interesting. Chemistry and commitment was from Michelle. That is, chemistry was on there. Commitment to each other, I think, was on there as well. Here's a good one. Little Miss Daisy's florist. Coffee, cars, champagne, chocolates, and shoes with a C. Listen, if those 5 C's work for you, then go get them, girl. I think we all need to find what we're looking for. Joe Dance says, compromise, 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 compromise. Oh, and compromise. Joe, don't, as I said just now, I think compromise is there, but I don't think you should compromise as much as you are maybe in your relationships because you're, I think, heavily over compromising. And the only person you end up compromising is probably yourself. Palu says compromise, commitment, chemistry, compassion, and calm. Yeah, see, calm would be would be one for me. I do find it's important to be calm or find someone that reflects you. If you're a calm person, you need someone else on the same sort of even keel as you. I think if you're quite an erratic person, maybe you need someone that's erratic. But listen, some erratic people are with calm people because there's always a balance, but balance doesn't begin with C, so they probably didn't use it. Max says, let me know. Certainly shall, certainly shall, because you can watch this. So this is the last one to finish, and I like this one. From Michelle McGrath. She says, only 5. I can't even get past the A's to get to B, never mind the C's. Only 18 months on the dating apps now. 18 long months. Isn't it amazing, though? You can chat to people online, phone calls, all the connections, she's used a C, are there. Then when you meet, and then there's time, that chemistry. See, you got one there. That chemistry decides to hibernate. And there is just no explaining chemistry. that should really be the eighth wonder of the world, because I'm buggered trying to figure that one out. But then again, maybe I'm just too fussy. No, you're not too fussy. Definitely not too fussy. Geez, you should be fussy the rest of your life. If you're not going to be fussy about the rest of your life, what is there to be fussy about? Last couple, I'm not going to sleep now. And Callum says, I look forward to this one. So Callum, I hope you're enjoying this. Listen, going back to that one just now, but this whole thing about chemistry, because I've had that. I've had that where I've spoke to people on dating sites, and I thought, this is it. I've met this person. This is going to be great. This is going to be the one. And then you get on, you're laughing, you're speaking, you like the sound of their voice, because that's a big thing as well. People's voices. Maybe it's just a me thing. How someone speaks is a really big thing for me. I do like an accent for some reason. So someone that speaks well, I've always found quite attractive. So that's a big thing for me. So you can hear their voice and think, that's great, that's great. You've seen the pictures of them, you think, yeah, I like the look of them. And then you meet them and it's just not there. Maybe, and I think what we do is we build up this image in our head of who we're going to meet, and it's great. I'm going to meet this person, they're like this, and we've almost squeezed this person that's a triangle into a circular shape to fit our little jigsaw puzzle that we spoke about before on these podcasts. And it doesn't quite match. And then when we turn up, we see it's not the same. And then it just goes. And that's the worst thing about dating apps. That is the worst thing, because you just feel terrible about yourself. You just think, I'm the worst person. Like, I'm that shallow that I've just clicked like that. But so many people say it. And I think when you tell people these stories that aren't on these apps, they don't get it. They just don't get it because they haven't experienced it. But you feel bad. You feel bad for the other person. And all you can be thinking is, I need to get out of here as quick as I can, and I'm never doing this again. I never want to make someone else feel bad, and I don't want to make myself feel this bad either. So, yeah. Listen, guys. There's our 5 C's of relationship. Give me your feedback. Come onto my Instagram, Shades and Grey, and Davison.Elliott. Leave comments on the video, wherever you're watching it, whether it's YouTube or whatever platform you're watching it. You can watch it in video, and you can listen to it in audio in the car, wherever you're going. Really appreciate your support for this podcast. I hope it's helping people, and I hope you enjoy listening to me babble on sometimes about a load of nonsense, because it gets us all through the day. But please continue to support it. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you follow, because it helps me. Take care. Have a good time. Good luck with the dating if you're doing it. Catch up soon. Bye-bye, guys.